I always thought I knew my wife inside and out, but that night, as I sat in my car watching her through the dim glow of streetlights, I realized I didn't know a damn thing. I wasn't the kind of guy who normally did this, parked outside a bar, heart pounding, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. But here I was, feeling like an idiot, like some desperate, paranoid husband in a movie. The evening had started out normal, or at least as normal as things had been lately. Laura had told me she was meeting some coworkers for a casual night out, a harmless little get-together to unwind after a stressful week. That's what she said, anyway, but something about the way she rushed to get ready, the way she carefully picked out her outfit, doing her makeup with more attention than usual, made something in my stomach tighten. When she kissed me goodbye, it felt like a formality, like something she did out of obligation rather than affection. I told myself I was overreacting, that she deserved a night out, that I wasn't some insecure husband who needed to keep tabs on his wife. But the second she walked out that door, I felt something was off. So I did something I'd never done before. I waited a few minutes, grabbed my keys, and followed her. I don't even know what I was expecting to find when I parked down the street from the bar. Maybe I thought I'd see her laughing with friends, proving that I was just being a jealous asshole for no reason. But what I actually saw made my breath catch in my throat. Laura wasn't inside with coworkers. She was outside, leaning against the wall, standing way too close to a guy I had never seen before. He wasn't some random colleague, and I knew at the moment she tilted her head, looking up at him the way she used to look at me when we were first dating. The way she smiled, the way he touched her arm lightly, the way her body language screamed comfort and familiarity, it was all too much. My hands trembled as I watched them, every rational part of my brain telling me to get out of there, to drive home and pretend I never saw any of this. But I couldn't move. Not when I saw her laugh at something he said, not when I saw him brush a strand of hair behind her ear, not when she leaned into him just slightly, enough for me to know that this wasn't just some innocent conversation. My chest felt tight, like someone had dropped a cinder block on it, and I barely realized I had gotten out of my car until I was standing on the sidewalk, a few feet away from them. Laura didn't notice me at first. She was too wrapped up in whatever the hell she was doing, in whoever the hell he was. But then he must have said something funny, something that made her laugh and playfully shove his shoulder, because her eyes flicked away from him for just a second and landed right on me. That was when I saw it. That flicker of shock, the way her whole body tensed, like a deer caught in headlights. She wasn't expecting me to be here. She knew, in that moment, that she was caught. Steve. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the way she said my name was enough to make my blood boil. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't panic. It was something closer to disbelief, like she actually couldn't believe I had the nerve to be here, watching her like this. I took a slow step forward, my pulse roaring in my ears, barely aware of the guy next to her straightening up, his expression shifting from casual to wary. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, eyes darting between us, waiting to see what was going to happen next. So this is the work party, huh? My voice sounded calm, but my entire body was shaking. Laura swallowed hard, her lips parting like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear whatever bullshit excuse she was about to make up anyway. Who the hell is this? I asked, finally turning my gaze to the guy standing next to her. He wasn't anything special. Taller than me, maybe, but not by much. Clean-shaven, dark hair, probably younger. He didn't look smug or guilty, just cautious, like he was trying to gauge whether I was about to start swinging. Laura finally found her voice. Steve, just let's not do this here. Oh, I think here's the perfect place to do this. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. Who is he? She hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. The guy finally spoke. Look, man, I think we should just... I swear to God, if you tell me to calm down, I'll put you through that damn window. I wasn't even sure if I meant it, but I was too far gone to care. The guy shut his mouth. Laura stepped in between us, her hand on my chest, her voice low. Steve, please, don't make a scene. Don't make a scene? I let out a bitter laugh, stepping back. You're out here sneaking around with this guy, and I'm the one making a scene? It's not what it looks like, she said, and that was it. That was the moment I snapped. Oh, really? I took a step back, gesturing wildly. Because from where I'm standing, it sure as hell looks like my wife is out here cuddled up with some random asshole while I'm sitting at home like an idiot thinking she's out with coworkers. Lower your voice, she hissed. Why? Afraid people might hear the truth? I was so angry I could barely see straight. Afraid they might find out that you're a goddamn liar? Her face turned red, whether from anger or embarrassment, I didn't know. Steve, let's just go home and talk about this. I shook my head, laughing bitterly. No, we're not going home. You go home. You sit in that house and think about what the hell you've just done. Steve. I turned on my heel and walked away, ignoring the way she called my name, ignoring the way the guy just stood there awkwardly, probably relieved I hadn't actually followed through on my threat to punch him. I didn't look back. I just got in my car, slammed the door, and drove off, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands ached. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage had just been flipped upside down, and I had no idea what the hell I was going to do next. The drive home felt like it took hours even though I knew it was barely 15 minutes. I didn't turn on the radio, didn't reach for my phone, didn't do anything except keep my eyes on the road and replay everything I had just seen. Every laugh, every touch, every nervous glance that passed between them. It was all burned into my memory now, a brand I'd never be able to scrape off no matter how badly I wanted to. My knuckles ached from gripping the steering wheel, my jaw hurt from clenching so hard, and my stomach twisted itself into knots so tight I thought I might actually throw up. I had left her standing there with him, left her scrambling for an excuse, left her exposed in the lie she had so carefully constructed, and yet, even knowing that, I still couldn't make sense of it. This wasn't some stranger who had cheated on me, this was Laura, the woman I married. The person I trusted more than anyone else in the world. The person who, up until about an hour ago, I would have sworn up and down was incapable of doing something like this to me. The second I pulled into the driveway, I knew I couldn't sit still. The house was too quiet, too still, too full of memories that now felt like a cruel joke. I walked inside, slammed the door behind me harder than I meant to, and stood in the middle of the living room, staring at nothing. The couch where we sat together watching movies, the kitchen where she stood making coffee in the mornings, the framed wedding photos on the wall, all of it felt different now. I needed to do something, anything, to stop myself from sinking into this pit of confusion and anger that was threatening to drag me under. My body moved on autopilot as I walked into the bedroom and grabbed her dresser handle, yanking it open so hard it nearly came off the rails. Her clothes, her perfume, the things that still smelled like her, it all made my head spin. What was I even looking for? Some kind of proof? I had already seen it with my own eyes. I didn't need messages or receipts or any other evidence. The truth had been right in front of me, clear as day. I shoved the drawer shut and paced the room, my mind jumping from one thought to the next without settling on anything. What was I supposed to do now? Was she going to come home and pretend like nothing had happened? Was she going to try to explain it away, come up with some excuse that would make it sound less damning than it was? Was she going to cry? Was I? The thought made my stomach turn even more, and I realized, in that moment, that I wasn't ready for whatever conversation was coming next. I needed time. I needed space. I needed to get the hell out of here before she walked through that door and turned everything into even more of a mess than it already was. I grabbed my keys again, barely realizing I had made the decision to leave until I was already halfway down the hall. The bedroom door slammed behind me, the sound echoing through the house as I moved toward the front door. My head was so clouded with anger that I almost didn't hear the car pull into the driveway. Almost. The second I saw the headlights cut through the window, my whole body tensed. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to hear whatever pathetic excuse she had planned. But it was too late. The sound of her car door shutting sent a spike of adrenaline through my veins, and then, a few seconds later, the front door opened. Steve. I didn't let her finish. Don't. Just don't. She stood there, key still in her hand, her face pale. Her eyes darted across the room like she was searching for a way to fix this before it even started, but there was no fixing this. She knew it. I knew it. The air between us was so thick with tension that it felt like the walls were closing in. Please, she tried again, stepping inside and shutting the door behind her. Can we just talk? I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Talk? Now you want to talk? Where was all this honesty a few hours ago when you were pressed up against some guy outside a bar? She flinched. Good. It's not. Don't you dare say it's not what it looks like. Don't insult me like that. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. I shoved them into my pockets before she could see. I saw you. I saw everything. She swallowed hard, and for the first time since she walked in, I saw it, the guilt, the shame, the realization that there was no way out of this. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. That's it. That's all you have to say. Her shoulders slumped, and for a second, she looked so small, so different from the woman who had been laughing and touching another man just hours before. But I couldn't feel bad for her. Not now. Not after everything. I don't know what else to say, she admitted, wrapping her arms around herself like it would protect her from the damage she had already done. I took a slow step forward, closing the space between us until I was close enough to see the way her hands trembled. How long? Her breath hitched. Steve. How long, Laura? I repeated, my voice sharp enough to cut. How long have you been lying to me? She hesitated, her eyes darting to the floor, and for a moment, I thought she wasn't going to answer. But then, finally, she exhaled shakily and whispered, a few months. My stomach dropped. I had been bracing myself for days, maybe weeks. But months? The room felt smaller. The walls felt closer. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears as I took a step back, shaking my head. Jesus Christ. Steve, I held up a hand. Don't. Just stop. She pressed her lips together, her entire body rigid, and for a second, I thought she might actually cry. But I didn't care. I couldn't care. Not after what she had done. I need to go, I said suddenly, the realization hitting me like a truck. I can't be here right now. Steve, please. I turned away from her, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The second I stepped outside, I sucked in a sharp breath, letting the cold night air hit my face. I needed space. I needed air. I needed to get as far away from her as possible before I said something I couldn't take back. And so, without another word, I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away. I didn't have a destination in mind when I pulled out of the driveway, but I knew I couldn't sit in that house with her, breathing the same air, pretending like this was something we could talk through. My foot pressed harder on the gas than it needed to, but I didn't care. The roads were nearly empty, the streetlights flashing by as I tried to focus on anything other than the sick feeling in my stomach. I gripped the wheel so tight my fingers ached, but it was better than thinking about her standing there, looking at me like she was the victim in all this. I could still see her face, the way she had flinched when I called her out, the way she hesitated before admitting just how long she had been lying to me. A few months. It repeated in my head like a siren, like an alarm I couldn't turn off. Every single day of those months, I had been waking up next to her, eating dinner with her, asking her about her day like an idiot while she had been sneaking around behind my back. I could feel my pulse in my throat, anger bubbling up so fast I could barely breathe, but I wasn't about to scream into the empty car like some lunatic. I needed to do something, needed to take control of something before I completely lost my grip. I pulled into the parking lot of the one place I knew would be open this late, barely remembering making the decision to come here at all. The bar was nearly empty, just a few stragglers sitting in booths or hunched over their drinks at the counter. The smell of cheap beer and fried food hung in the air, and for once, I was grateful for the noise, the clinking of glasses, the low hum of conversation, the occasional burst of laughter from a group in the corner. Anything was better than silence. I walked straight to the bar, nodding at the bartender, a guy I vaguely recognized but didn't know well enough to have a conversation with. That was exactly what I wanted. Whiskey, I said, voice rougher than I expected. Neat. He poured without asking questions, sliding the glass toward me before moving on to another customer. I downed half of it in one go, letting the burn take the edge off, but it did nothing to clear my head. I didn't want to be one of those guys, the ones who drank away their problems, who sat in a bar feeling sorry for themselves, but what the hell else was I supposed to do? Go home? Listen to Laura try to justify what she had done? Try to sleep in the same bed where she had been lying to me for months? No. I'd rather sit here and drink until I could think straight. I barely noticed the person sitting next to me until they spoke. You look like you need something stronger than that. I turned my head slightly, seeing a man who looked about my age, maybe a little older. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loosened, and he had the kind of tired expression that told me he had his own problems to deal with. I wasn't in the mood for small talk, but he wasn't wrong. Yeah, I muttered, taking another sip. Probably. He let out a dry chuckle, raising his own glass. Well, whatever it is, I guarantee you're not the first guy to sit at this bar because of a woman. I didn't respond, just exhaled sharply and stared at the amber liquid in my glass. Maybe I wasn't the first, but that didn't make it any easier. Wife or girlfriend? He asked, not looking at me, just swirling his drink around like he had all the time in the world. Wife, I said, the word tasting like poison in my mouth. He let out a low whistle. Damn. Divorce level bad? I didn't answer right away, because for the first time since I walked out of the house, I realized I didn't actually know the answer to that. Before tonight, if someone had asked me if I'd ever consider leaving Laura, I would have laughed. We had been together for years, built a life together, made plans for the future. But now, all of that felt like it belonged to some other version of me, a guy who was too blind to see what was happening right in front of him. The idea of staying with her, of pretending like we could somehow fix this, made my stomach turn. Yeah, I finally said. Probably. The guy nodded like he understood, like he had been there before. You find out tonight? I let out a bitter laugh. Saw it with my own damn eyes. Jesus, he muttered, shaking his head. That's rough. Ruff didn't even begin to cover it. Ruff was running late for work. Ruff was getting stuck in traffic. This was something else entirely. For a while, we just sat there, drinking in silence, two strangers with nothing in common except the fact that life had knocked us both on our asses. I wasn't looking for advice, wasn't looking for someone to tell me what to do, but for some reason, sitting next to someone who wasn't trying to justify what had happened, who wasn't trying to tell me how I should feel, made it easier to breathe. After my second drink, I checked my phone for the first time since leaving the house. Missed calls. Texts. All from Laura. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. I could already hear what she was probably saying. We need to talk. Please come home. Let me explain. But there was nothing to explain. I stared at the screen for a long moment before shoving the phone back into my pocket. I wasn't ready for whatever conversation was waiting for me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The bartender passed by, raising an eyebrow like he was waiting for me to order another, but I shook my head. If I kept drinking, I'd make a decision I couldn't take back, and I needed my head clear when I walked into that house again. I stood up, tossing a few bills onto the counter, and turned to the guy next to me. Good luck with whatever you're dealing with. He gave me a tired smile. You too. I walked out into the night, taking a deep breath of fresh air. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My mind wasn't spinning as fast as it had been an hour ago. I didn't know what I was going to say to Laura when I saw her again, but one thing was clear. I wasn't the same man who had walked out of that house. And I never would be again. When I pulled back into the driveway, the house looked the same as when I left. But I knew better. It wasn't the same. Nothing was. I sat in the car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, breathing slow, steadying myself. The phone was still in my pocket, buzzing every few minutes with more messages from Laura, but I hadn't read a single one. I didn't need to. Whatever she had to say wasn't going to change the fact that she had looked me in the eye and admitted she had been lying to me for months. I had spent the last hour going over every possible way this conversation could go, but the only thing I was sure of was that it was going to happen. There was no avoiding it. So, I stepped out of the car, walked up to the door, and pushed it open without hesitation. Laura was sitting on the couch, her phone clutched in her hands, her knee bouncing in a nervous rhythm. The second she saw me, she stood up, her mouth opening like she had been rehearsing whatever she was about to say. Steve, no. Sit down. She blinked, startled by how firm my voice was, but she obeyed, sinking back onto the couch like she knew there was no way out of this. I shut the door behind me, locked it, then stood in front of her with my arms crossed. I could see the way she was gripping the phone tight, like it was the only thing keeping her steady. I could see the way her eyes darted to my face, searching for something anger, sadness, a weakness she could use. Start talking, I said, my voice steady, cold. And don't insult me by lying. She swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and finally spoke. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't go looking for it. It just happened. I let out a sharp breath, shaking my head. That's not an answer. That's an excuse. Her eyes flashed with something, maybe frustration, maybe guilt, but she didn't argue. It started a few months ago. I was feeling, I don't know, lonely? Stuck? It's not like I planned for this, Steve. Who is he? She hesitated, and that was all the confirmation I needed that she didn't want to tell me. That made me want to know even more. His name. Eric, she said finally, her voice small. He's someone I met through work. A dry laugh escaped me. Work? You work from home, Laura. What? Did he climb through the damn window? She flinched. I met him when I was out with friends. It started as talking, that's it. Just conversations. And then what? One day you accidentally tripped and fell into his bed. Her face twisted, hurt flashing across it, but I didn't care. She didn't get to be the one who was hurt. She didn't get to look at me like I was the one tearing this apart. It wasn't like that, she insisted, her grip on the phone tightening. I didn't sleep with him right away. How considerate of you, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Did you wait a whole 2 weeks before throwing everything away? Or did you make it a month just to convince yourself it wasn't that bad? Tears welled up in her eyes, and she looked down, shaking her head. I know I screwed up, okay? I know I hurt you. I hate myself for it. Good. You should. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I stared at her, waiting for her to say something, anything, that would explain why she thought this was worth risking everything we had built. She wiped her eyes quickly and took another shaky breath. I never stopped loving you. I laughed, loud and bitter. You sure as hell had a funny way of showing it. I don't expect you to understand. Try me. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw anger there, like she was mad at me for pushing, for making her say things out loud that she didn't want to admit. I felt invisible, she said finally, her voice sharp. Like I was just existing in this house, like we were just going through the motions. I didn't want to feel like that anymore. And instead of talking to me, instead of saying something, you went and found someone else? At first, it wasn't like that, she said, shaking her head. I just liked the attention, liked feeling wanted. I took a step back, rubbing a hand over my face. Jesus Christ, Laura, do you even hear yourself? She didn't say anything, just looked at me like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe I didn't either. I don't know what you want me to say, she admitted, her voice breaking. I exhaled slowly, trying to push down the rage that was still boiling under the surface. I want you to tell me why I should stay. Her eyes widened slightly, like the thought of me actually leaving hadn't really sunk in until now. Steve, please. I know I messed up, but I don't want to lose you. You should have thought about that months ago. She reached for me then, but I stepped back before she could touch me. The way her face crumbled made something in my chest tighten, but I didn't let it show. I had spent years loving this woman, trusting her, building a life with her, and she had spent months throwing it away behind my back. The worst part was that she probably hadn't even thought about what would happen if I found out. Maybe she thought she could keep it hidden forever. Maybe she thought I'd be too blind, too trusting, too stupid to notice. Do you love him? The question hung in the air between us, heavier than anything else I had asked. I could see the panic in her eyes, the way her lips parted like she wanted to deny it immediately, but something stopped her. And that hesitation was enough. I nodded once, more to myself than to her. That's all I needed to know. Steve, wait. But I didn't wait. I turned around, walked to the bedroom, grabbed the overnight bag I had packed earlier, and slung it over my shoulder. I had no idea where I was going, no plan, no destination, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't sleeping under the same roof as her. When I walked past her toward the door, she didn't try to stop me. She just sat there, gripping her phone like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Maybe it was. I didn't say anything as I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I just left. I didn't know where I was going when I left the house, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to be the one feeling like a fool while Laura sat there pretending she regretted anything other than getting caught. The second I pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts, stopping on the one name that made sense right now. It rang twice before he picked up, his voice groggy like I had woken him up. Mike, I said, gripping the steering wheel. I need a place to crash. There was a pause, then a sigh. Steve, what the hell is going on? I'll explain when I get there. Mike didn't ask any more questions, just gave me the green light. I should have known he wouldn't hesitate. We had been friends since high school, through every stage of life, through every screw-up, and if there was one person I could count on to have my back right now, it was him. I drove in silence, my mind replaying every second of my conversation with Laura, every pathetic excuse she had thrown at me. I wasn't going to be the guy who sat around crying while his wife got away with humiliating him. If she wanted to throw away our marriage for some idiot, then fine. But I wasn't going to leave this without making her feel just as stupid as she had made me feel. When I pulled into Mike's driveway, he was already standing outside, arms crossed, waiting. The second I stepped out of the car, he took one look at my face and let out a low whistle. Shit, he muttered. What did she do? I walked past him into the house, throwing my bag onto the couch before running a hand over my face. She cheated. Mike let out a long breath and closed the door. You sure? Caught her outside a bar with the guy. She admitted it when I confronted her. He didn't say anything for a second, just grabbed a couple of beers from the fridge and handed me one before sitting down. Jesus, man. I don't even know what to say. I cracked open the beer, took a long sip, and stared at the floor. I don't need you to say anything. I just need to figure out what the hell I'm going to do next. You staying here for a while? For now. I'm not going back there. Mike nodded like he understood, then leaned forward. So, what's the plan? You gonna file for divorce? That was the question, wasn't it? The obvious choice, the logical one. But the truth was, I wasn't ready to make that decision yet. Not because I wanted to save the marriage, I didn't. But because something in me needed her to suffer first. She had spent months lying to me, sneaking around, making me look like an idiot, and now she wanted to sit there with tears in her eyes and beg me to stay? No, that wasn't how this was going to play out. If she thought she could just walk away from this without consequences, she was dead wrong. Not yet, I said finally, looking up at Mike. I'm going to make her regret this first. His eyebrows shot up, but he didn't argue. He knew me well enough to know that once I had my mind set on something, there was no talking me out of it. How? He asked. I smirked, the first real smile I had managed since this whole nightmare started. She doesn't get to walk away clean. She thinks she's got this all under control, that she can just cry and beg and make me forgive her. I want to see what happens when she realizes that she's the one losing everything, not me. Mike let out a low chuckle and took another sip of his beer. Damn. Remind me never to piss you off. I leaned back against the couch, my mind already working through every step I needed to take. Laura thought she had won, that she had been in control of this situation the whole time, but she had underestimated me. She had spent months making me look like a fool, but now it was her turn. I was going to take my time, do this right. And when I was done, she would be left with nothing but regret. I woke up to the sound of Mike shuffling around in the kitchen, the smell of coffee filling the small apartment. My head was clearer than it had been the night before, but the anger was still there, sitting just beneath the surface, waiting. I wasn't the type to make reckless decisions, but this wasn't about impulse. It was about making sure Laura felt the weight of what she had done. She had spent months making a fool out of me, pretending like everything was fine while sneaking around with some idiot she thought was worth more than our marriage. Now, it was her turn to feel what it was like to have the rug pulled out from under her. Mike walked in, tossing me a cup of coffee before sitting down across from me. He didn't say anything at first, just sipped his drink and watched me like he was waiting for me to speak. You still set on making her pay for this? He asked, finally breaking the silence. I took a slow sip of coffee, nodding. Yeah, but I'm not going to do anything stupid. I just want her to feel what I felt. Mike smirked, shaking his head. Man, she's not going to see this coming, is she? She thinks she's already won, I said, setting my cup down. She thinks she can cry a little, say she's sorry, and I'll either forgive her or just walk away quietly. I'm not giving her that. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. All right, what's the plan? I had spent most of the night thinking about that exact question, and now, as I sat there, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Laura had always cared about appearances. She wanted people to think we had the perfect marriage, the perfect life. That was part of why she had been so careful, why she had chosen someone outside of our social circle to cheat with. She didn't want anyone to know what she had done, didn't want to be the woman who wrecked her own marriage. I was going to take that away from her. First thing I need is proof, I said. Not just my word against hers. I want something that she can't lie her way out of. Mike raised an eyebrow. You already caught her with the guy. What more do you need? I need to make sure everyone else sees it too, I said, my voice steady. She cares about what people think. If she wanted to leave me for this guy, she would have. She didn't because she wanted the best of both worlds. That stops now. Mike let out a low whistle, shaking his head. Damn, you're really going for the kill. She deserves worse, I muttered. He didn't argue. He just nodded, taking another sip of his coffee. All right. So, how do you get proof? She won't stop talking to him, I said. She admitted she's been seeing him for months. You don't just cut something like that off overnight, especially not when you've convinced yourself it wasn't wrong. Mike frowned, setting his cup down. You think she's still seeing him? I let out a bitter chuckle. I know she is. And if I know Laura, she's going to reach out to him today. She's going to cry to him about how I left, about how she doesn't know what to do. And if he's as much of an idiot as I think he is, he's going to comfort her. Maybe even tell her everything will be fine, that they can be together now. Mike exhaled sharply, shaking his head. So, what? You're going to catch them in the act. I nodded. If I do this right, she's going to walk right into her own downfall. Mike rubbed his hands over his face, letting out a laugh that had no humor in it. Man, I don't know if I should be impressed or terrified of you right now. I stood up, grabbing my keys from the counter. I need to go back to the house. Mike's expression shifted, his brows furrowing. You sure that's a good idea? She's not expecting me back, I said. She probably thinks I'm off somewhere licking my wounds, trying to figure out if I can forgive her. That means she's going to be sloppy. I need to see what she does when she thinks I'm not watching. Mike didn't argue, just nodded slowly. You want backup? I shook my head. This is something I need to do alone. I left his apartment and drove back toward the house, my pulse steady, my mind sharper than it had been since this all started. I wasn't going there to talk to Laura. I wasn't going there to fight. I was going there to confirm what I already knew, that she hadn't stopped, that she had no intention of stopping, that she was going to try and twist this whole thing to make herself look like the victim. The second I pulled up to the house, I parked a few houses down, out of sight. If Laura was inside, she wouldn't notice me, and if she had company, well, that was exactly what I was hoping for. I sat there for a while, watching. The house looked the same, but I knew it wasn't. The curtains in the living room were drawn, which was unusual. Laura liked natural light, always kept them open during the day. My hands tightened around the steering wheel as I checked the time. Mid-morning. If she was going to talk to him, now was the time. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through an app one had never thought I would need. A security app linked to the cameras I had installed a year ago. I had put them in for safety, for peace of mind, never imagining I'd be using them to catch my wife cheating. When the feed loaded, my stomach twisted. There she was, sitting on the couch, her phone pressed to her ear, her expression tense. I tapped the audio button, my heart pounding as her voice came through. I don't know what to do, Eric, she said, her voice shaky. He left. He just walked out. I think he might actually divorce me. There was silence for a moment, then a low voice responded, too muffled for me to make out the words. But I didn't need to. I could see the way she relaxed, the way she leaned back against the couch, her lips curling into something that almost looked like relief. I know, she said, softer this time. I didn't think it would happen like this. Another pause. Then, she let out a small laugh. Yeah, she murmured. Maybe it is for the best. I turned off the audio, my grip on the phone tightening. That was all I needed to hear. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't broken. She was already trying to rewrite the story, already trying to make herself feel better about what she had done. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I wasn't done yet. This was just the beginning. She had no idea that her world was about to fall apart. I sat in my car, staring at the screen, watching Laura on that couch like none of this mattered to her. She wasn't breaking down, wasn't regretting a damn thing, wasn't even trying to figure out how to fix it. She was laughing with him, the same way she used to laugh with me, the same way she had probably laughed after every lie she told me, after every night she spent with him instead of coming home like a faithful wife. I had been ready for tears, for apologies, for some pathetic attempt at making me believe she still loved me, but this was different. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't regret. This was relief. She was free, and she was already adjusting to the idea of a life without me. She thought she had one, thought I was just going to disappear quietly and leave her with everything we built together while she played house with some idiot who had no idea what was coming for him. That was the moment I made my decision. I wasn't just going to leave. I wasn't just going to move on and pretend like she hadn't spent months humiliating me. She wanted this life, wanted him, wanted to throw away everything we had for some cheap fling? Fine. But she wasn't walking away with a damn thing except the consequences of her own choices. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts, stopping on the name I hadn't needed in years. When the call connected, I didn't waste time with small talk. Alex, I need a lawyer, I said, my voice steady. A damn good one. Alex let out a low breath. Steve? What's going on? I'll explain later, I said. Just tell me. How fast can you start? Depends on what you need, he said carefully. Divorce. I exhaled sharply. Yeah, and I want to make sure she gets as little as possible. There was a pause, then the sound of him grabbing something, probably a pen and paper. All right. Does she know yet? No, I said, glancing back at the screen where Laura was still talking to Eric, oblivious to the fact that I was watching. But she will soon. Alex sighed. Then let's move fast. We'll go over everything today. You free in an hour? I'll be there. I ended the call and stared at my phone for a moment, my mind already running through every detail. The house, the accounts, the car, everything we had built together. Laura wasn't walking away with it. She had made her choice, and now she was going to live with it. But I wasn't done yet. She needed to feel what it was like to have everything taken away from her piece by piece, to see her world crumble while she watched, powerless. I wasn't just going to serve her divorce papers. I was going to make sure Eric saw them too. I scrolled through my phone again, this time looking for something specific. When I found it, I smirked. She had been careful, deleting messages, hiding things, but she had slipped up more than once. A few months ago, she had sent me a picture of herself out with friends, a casual selfie that I hadn't thought much of at the time. But in the background, blurred but still visible, was Eric, sitting next to her, leaning in just slightly too close. I forwarded the photo to my email, then opened a new message. To Eric, unknown number. Subject: You should know. Hey Eric. I figured if we're going to be in each other's lives, we should be honest with each other. Here's what your girlfriend has been up to for the last few months. Hope she was worth it. I attached the photo, then hit send. Laura wasn't the only one who deserved to feel what betrayal felt like. Eric thought he had one, that he had taken another man's wife and walked away clean. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. I put my phone down and started the car, heading toward Alex's office. The real game was just beginning. The drive to Alex's office was quiet, but my head wasn't. Every moment of the last few days played on repeat, from the second I saw her outside that bar to the way she had sat on our couch, whispering to Eric like she was some lost, broken woman instead of a liar who had spent months sneaking around behind my back. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done. She had made her choice, and now I was making mine. She wanted to move on? Fine. But I was going to make sure that when she did, she had nothing left to take with her. When I walked into Alex's office, he was already waiting, sitting behind his desk with a cup of coffee, flipping through a folder. He didn't bother with small talk. That was one of the reasons I had called him. I put together a preliminary strategy based on what you told me over the phone, he said, pushing a few papers toward me. You want to hit her fast and hard, right? I sat down, glancing at the paperwork. I don't want this to drag out. I want it over, and I want her out with as little as possible. Alex nodded. All right. So first things first, assets. The house is in your name alone, which works in your favor. You've been the primary provider, and there's no prenup, so she'll probably try to go after whatever she can. But if we can prove infidelity, I slid my phone across the desk, open to the security footage I had saved from earlier. Laura, sitting on the couch, whispering to Eric, laughing. I had the audio too. Alex picked up the phone and played the clip, his eyebrows raising slightly as he listened. Well, damn, he muttered. This is better than anything I was expecting. She's not sorry, I said, my voice flat. She's just upset she got caught. Alex set the phone down and leaned back in his chair. With this, we can build a strong case. Judges don't take kindly to cheaters, especially ones who act like this. If we present this the right way, she won't get a damn thing except what you're willing to give her. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the desk. I don't want to give her anything. A small smirk tugged at Alex's lips. Then let's make that happen. We spent the next hour going through every step, making sure every angle was covered. By the time I walked out of his office, I knew exactly what was coming next. Laura was going to be served, and she wasn't going to see it coming. But I wasn't done yet. I checked my phone, refreshing my email. Nothing from Eric yet, but that was fine. He had the picture now. He had my message. Maybe he was ignoring it. Maybe he was still trying to process what I had thrown at him, but sooner or later, he was going to crack. And Laura? She was going to break before he did. I drove back to Mike's place, but I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked down the street and pulled up the security feed again. She was still in the house, pacing now, her phone in her hand. She was nervous. I could see it in the way she kept running her fingers through her hair, in the way she glanced at the front door every few seconds like she was waiting for me to walk in. She had no idea what was coming. Then, right on cue, her phone rang. She answered so fast it was obvious she had been waiting for the call. Eric. I turned up the volume, listening. You need to tell me what the hell is going on. Eric's voice came through the speaker, tense, sharp. I just got an email, with a picture. From your husband. Laura froze. Even through the grainy footage, I could see the way her face paled, the way her grip on the phone tightened. What? Don't play dumb, Laura. Eric snapped. He knows. He sent me proof. What the hell were you thinking? She sat down hard on the couch, pressing her fingers against her temple. He left. He just walked out. I didn't think. You didn't think? Eric cut her off, his voice rising. Jesus Christ, Laura. I thought you said you had this under control. I did, she snapped back. He was supposed to leave, be angry, but not fight back? Eric finished for her. Not come after you? She didn't answer, just ran a hand through her hair. exhaling shakily. I don't know what to do. There was silence on the other end, then Eric let out a sharp breath. I need to go. I need to figure this out. Eric. The call ended. Laura just sat there, staring at the phone, her face blank. She wasn't crying. She wasn't breaking down. She was calculating, trying to figure out her next move. But there wasn't going to be a next move for her. I put my phone away and leaned back in my seat, satisfied. It had started. The doubt, the panic, the realization that everything was slipping through her fingers. This wasn't even the worst of it. I checked the time. She was about to get served in a few hours, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. I parked a block away from the house, far enough that Laura wouldn't immediately notice my car if she glanced out the window, but close enough that I could watch everything unfold in real time. My phone sat on the passenger seat, the security feed still open, showing her pacing around the living room, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. She had tried calling Eric 3 more times after he hung up on her, but he wasn't answering. Now she was just standing there, chewing on her lip, deep in thought, probably trying to figure out how to get ahead of whatever she thought was coming. She still believed she could control this. She still thought she could talk her way out of it, convince me that she had made a mistake, that she was sorry, that we could fix this. But she didn't know what I had planned. I checked my watch. Any minute now. She sat down, exhaling sharply, then pulled up her messages. I watched her type something out, delete it, type again, hesitate. Then, finally, she sent it. My phone vibrated a second later. I already knew who it was, but I checked anyway. Laura, Steve, please. We need to talk. I let out a breath, shaking my head. She had no idea she had already lost. Another message came through before I could even lock my screen. Laura, I know I hurt you, but walking away isn't the answer. Please, just come home so we can talk about this. I glanced back at the security feed. She was staring at her phone now, waiting, probably thinking that if she said the right thing, I would cave. She didn't understand that I wasn't that man anymore. A knock at the door made her jump. I leaned forward in my seat, watching as she hurried toward it, smoothing her hair down like that would somehow make a difference. She peeked through the peephole, hesitated, then slowly opened the door. Mrs. Carter? The process server's voice was clear through the audio feed. Laura blinked, confused, then nodded slowly. Yes. The woman reached into her bag, pulled out the envelope, and held it out. You've been served. Laura didn't take it at first. She just stood there, frozen, like the words didn't make sense. Then, finally, she reached out, her fingers closing around the envelope like it might burn her. What is this? She asked, but her voice was weak, unsteady. The process server didn't answer. She just gave a polite nod and turned to leave. Laura stood there, staring at the papers in her hands, her breath coming faster now, her fingers gripping the edges so tight they started to bend. I could almost see the thoughts racing through her head, the panic setting in. She hadn't expected this. She had thought there would be time, that I would come back, that we would have some big emotional conversation where she could twist the story in her favor. She had thought she would have control. She had no control now. I watched her step back inside, shutting the door slowly, then walking to the couch with stiff, careful movements. She sat down, staring at the envelope like it might explode. For a long time, she didn't open it. Then, finally, she slid her finger under the flap and pulled out the papers. I already knew what they said. Divorce on grounds of adultery. She would get nothing. No house, no car, no financial support. I had been the primary provider, and with the evidence I had, she wouldn't be able to fight it. She would leave with whatever she could pack in a suitcase. Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. Then she grabbed her phone again. Laura, Steve, please answer me. Another message came through a second later. Laura, this isn't fair. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Not fair? She thought this wasn't fair? After everything she had done? Another message. Laura, we can fix this. And another. Laura, just talk to me. She was unraveling, right in front of me. The confident, careless woman who had whispered to Eric just hours ago, laughing about how maybe this was for the best, was gone. Now, she was panicking. Now, she understood what she had lost. I didn't respond. I just sat there and watched as she fell apart. Laura stared at her phone, waiting for a response that wasn't coming. She was gripping it so tightly her knuckles were turning white, her foot tapping against the floor in short, erratic bursts. Every few seconds, she would glance at the divorce papers again, like she was trying to make sense of them, like the words would suddenly rearrange themselves into something she could live with. She hadn't cried yet, but I could see the way her breathing had changed, the way her body was stiff, like she was holding something back. She was struggling to process the fact that this was real, that I wasn't going to walk back through that door and let her explain, that I wasn't going to give her a chance to manipulate me into seeing things her way. She pulled up my messages again, typing something, deleting it, then typing again. When the next message came through, I didn't even need to check my phone. I could see it on the screen. Laura, Steve, please. I don't want this. She wanted to sound desperate now, but just a few hours ago, she had been telling Eric that maybe this was for the best. That was the real her. The Laura who had gotten too comfortable, who had thought she could do whatever she wanted without consequences. The Laura who had never expected me to fight back. She set the phone down and pushed her hands into her hair, gripping at the roots like she was trying to force herself to think. Then, she suddenly stood up, grabbed her keys off the coffee table, and headed for the door. I watched as she stepped outside, scanning the street, her head jerking in every direction like she was looking for me. She thought I was coming home. She thought I was watching. She wasn't wrong. I stayed where I was, parked down the block, out of sight. I wanted to see what she would do, what her next move would be. Would she try to find me? Would she go to Eric? Would she sit in the car and cry? She walked toward her car with purpose, yanking the door open, sliding into the driver's seat so quickly it was obvious she had made up her mind. The engine roared to life, and she pulled away from the house in a hurry, turning onto the main road without hesitation. I didn't have to guess where she was going. I already knew. I started my car and followed, keeping a few cars behind, making sure she wouldn't notice me. She wasn't paying attention anyway. Her focus was on the road ahead, her phone lighting up in the passenger seat as she drove, probably messaging Eric, telling him she needed to talk, that everything was falling apart. Maybe she thought he would reassure her, that he would say the right things, that he would promise to be there for her. She didn't understand what kind of man he really was yet. She didn't realize that the second things got messy, he would start pulling away. I stayed back, watching as she turned onto a quieter street, pulling into the parking lot of an apartment complex. Eric's place. She barely parked before she was out of the car, slamming the door, walking toward his unit with quick, frantic steps. She knocked, then knocked again, more urgently this time. A few seconds passed before the door opened, and there he was, standing in the doorway, looking less than thrilled to see her. I rolled down my window slightly, just enough to hear. "Laura," Eric said, his voice low, cautious. "What are you doing here?" She pushed past him without waiting for an invitation, stepping inside like she belonged there. He hesitated for a second before sighing and shutting the door behind them. I parked across the street and pulled up the security app again, switching to the microphone feature. I had set up a tracker in her car weeks ago, back when I first started suspecting something was off. She had no idea it had a built-in mic. I tapped in, and their voices came through clearly. "You're just going to stand there?" Laura snapped. "You ignored my calls, and now you're acting like I'm the problem?" Eric exhaled sharply. "Look, I don't know what you want me to say. This is a mess." "You think I don't know that?" She shot back. "Steve filed for divorce. Do you understand what that means?" Eric let out a humorless chuckle. "Yeah, Laura, I get it. Your husband is pissed. What did you expect?" She didn't answer right away. I could almost hear her struggling to find the right words, to figure out how to spin this so Eric would take her side, so he wouldn't start seeing her as a problem. "I need you," she said finally, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "I gave up everything for you." Eric scoffed. "You didn't give up anything. You got caught." Silence. And then, "Is that what you think?" Her voice was shaking now, but I couldn't tell if it was from anger or panic. Eric didn't back down. "I think you thought you could have both. And now that it's blowing up in your face, you're looking for someone to save you." She let out a sharp breath, like he had slapped her. "So that's it? You're just done." He sighed, but there was no sympathy in his voice. "Laura, come on. What do you want me to do? Play house with you now that your husband is kicking you out? I never promised you anything. You told me you cared about me," she whispered. Eric let out another breath. "I cared about sleeping with you. That's not the same thing." For the first time since this started, Laura was completely silent. She had spent months convincing herself that Eric was worth the risk, that he was different, that he was someone who actually gave a damn about her. And now, standing in his apartment, she was realizing the truth. He was just a guy who liked the thrill of sneaking around with another man's wife. Now that the game was over, he didn't want to play anymore. "I need you to leave," Eric said after a long pause. "I have work in the morning." Laura let out a short, bitter laugh. but there was nothing behind it. She had nothing left to say. I watched as the door opened again, as she stepped out, as she stood there for a moment, staring at the ground like she didn't know what to do next. Then, slowly, she walked back to her car, moving like someone who had finally understood that there was no way out. She had lost everything. I put my phone down, watching as she sat in the driver's seat, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping her upright. She didn't start the car right away. She just sat there, completely still. I didn't feel bad for her. I didn't feel anything at all. Laura sat in her car for a long time, staring at nothing, her hands still gripping the steering wheel. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't lash out. She just sat there, motionless, as if her brain hadn't caught up with reality yet. I stayed parked across the street, watching from a distance, waiting to see what she would do next. She had no one left to turn to. Eric had shut her out, and I had made it clear that I wasn't going to play the role of the heartbroken husband who could be talked into forgiving her. Everything she had spent months building in secret had just collapsed around her, and now she was sitting there, alone, finally realizing that she had nothing. She reached for her phone, hesitated, then finally unlocked it. A few seconds later, my own phone vibrated. I didn't check the message right away, letting her wait, letting her sit with the fear that I wouldn't respond at all. 5 minutes passed, then another. When I finally looked, there were 3 messages. Laura, I need to talk to you. Laura, please, just hear me out. Laura, I know I don't deserve it, but I need to see you. She didn't deserve it. That was the first thing she had gotten right in a long time. I took my time before responding, keeping my answer short. Me? Where? She read it immediately, and I saw her exhale, like she had been holding her breath. Laura, home. Please. I didn't reply, just started the car and pulled onto the road. She left the parking lot a few seconds later, heading in the same direction. I stayed a few cars behind, making sure she didn't notice I had been watching her this whole time. When we reached the house, she pulled into the driveway, but I parked on the street, leaving distance between us. She waited at the door, her hands fidgeting, her body tense as she watched me walk up. She opened the door before I could reach for it. Steve. Inside. She stepped back, letting me in. The house was the same, but it felt different now. She stood near the couch, looking at me like she was waiting for some kind of permission to speak. I didn't give it to her. She swallowed hard. You didn't answer my calls. You're lucky I answered it all. Her shoulders tensed at the coldness in my voice, but she didn't argue. I don't even know where to start. Start with the truth. She nodded quickly, like she had been expecting that. I never wanted this to happen. Don't. I took a step forward, and she flinched. You wanted this. You made a choice. Over and over again. The only thing you didn't want was getting caught. She squeezed her eyes shut, shaking her head. I was stupid. That's not an apology. Her eyes opened again, red-rimmed now. I'm sorry, Steve. I swear to God, I am. I never stopped loving you. I let out a sharp breath, laughing bitterly. You don't get to say that. Her face crumpled, but I didn't care. She had been laughing with Eric just hours ago, telling him how this might be for the best. That was who she really was. This version of her, the one standing here with watery eyes and a shaking voice, was just another performance. You knew, I said. The second you started this, you knew what it meant. You knew you were throwing everything away. And you did it anyway. Her breath hitched. I wasn't thinking. You thought about it for months. She let out a shaky breath, hugging herself. I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't care if you did. She flinched again, looking away. Silence stretched between us, heavy and unbreakable. I could see the gears turning in her head, the desperation setting in. She was trying to find the right words, the right angle, the right way to manipulate this into something she could salvage. But there was nothing left to save. What do you want me to do? She whispered. I studied her for a moment, then finally spoke. Pack a bag. Her breath caught. Steve, please. Pack a bag, I repeated, my voice leaving no room for argument. Tears slipped down her face, but she didn't move. This is my home too. Not anymore. She wiped at her face, shaking her head. You can't just throw me out. I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped the screen a few times before holding it up for her to see. The security footage from earlier, the conversation she had with Eric, played back in real time. Her face paled as she heard her own voice, as she listened to herself tell him that maybe this was for the best. I stopped the video. Still think you belong here? Her lips trembled, but she had no answer. I put my phone away. Start packing, Laura. She wiped at her face again, then finally turned and walked toward the bedroom. I didn't follow. I didn't care what she took. I didn't care where she went. I just knew I wanted her gone. 15 minutes later, she came back, a suitcase in her hand, her face blotchy from crying. Where am I supposed to go? I stared at her, letting the question hang in the air. It was the first time she had really understood that there was no backup plan, no safety net. Eric didn't want her. I didn't want her. She was on her own. That's not my problem, I said. She swallowed hard, then nodded. Without another word, she walked to the door, opened it, and stepped outside. She hesitated for a second, like she was waiting for me to stop her, but I didn't. She turned back slightly. Goodbye, Steve. I didn't answer. I just shut the door.